Hello, Cindy. Hello, Cindy. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Let's start in 5 minutes. We'll just wait 5 more minutes. Okay?
Sounds good. All right. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay, so just waiting. I hate waiting. Does anyone have any questions before we get started? Getting started in 2 minutes. Okay, 1 more minute. Then we can get to the actual content.
Cindy, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Great.
Ready? 1 more minute. 1 more minute. Okay, it hit 7:05 on my end. Shall we start it? Shall we get started?
Yeah.
Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for sharing, or thank you for spending another weekday evening with us again on how to get to your financial freedom. Oh, I actually see your question. It's a separate unit. What? I don't understand this question. Whoever typed this question, can you actually explain that? Type it out again. Okay. Anyways, so today we're going to talk about how to purchase a single detached house and somehow achieve rental income of 70,000 plus and maintaining a cash flow of either neutral or positive, even in today's rate environment. All right. House cleaning stuff. every time I have to have a disclaimer and say that, please, it's only for educational purpose only. Okay, do not rely on any of this. You should check with your lawyer, your accountant. I'm a realtor too, but you should check your own realtor. I'm a mortgage broker too, but you should check your own mortgage broker. I'm an investor myself. You should check with whoever that you trust can give you, can cross-verify this kind of information. Okay. All right. So just a refresher on what we covered so far in our program. On a high level, so we mainly share information on two buckets of assets. One is lending, the other one is real estate. So lending we already covered, 12 months, 10% plus interest prepaid. This does not involve real assets. On the right-hand side, this is the roadmap we have for real estate asset. And we started out with duplex. Today's session is triplex so it's the session after duplex. So if you missed any of the things we already covered, reach out to us. We have recordings. So last time with duplex, you can achieve revenue of 40,000 plus. This time, we will show you a real example how you achieve 70,000 plus. Okay. So when you can use your mortgage room, if you do duplex or garden suite or whatever, you can generate between 40,000 to 70,000, and your ROI is somewhere between 7 to 25% plus, right? So in our future sessions, after we've done triplex, then we get into, fourplex or multifamily buildings, which is 6 units and above. Then you're looking at roughly 200K revenue and plus, right? But that's for later. So today, what we're talking about is 3 units. This falls into this falls into our asset category. All right. Next. Okay. So I always show this one just so that you know under what condition this can be done. So, and this is a roadmap that I tell anybody that comes to me asking for opinion. Essentially, I just walk them through, if real estate is what you want to do, at least these are the 4 steps that can get you to, a big portfolio. So the first one is, if you do not have primary residence, buy one. All right. You need roughly about 200K plus. Okay. And your ROI is going to be over 40% based on historical data, simply because of the tax implication. So if you are learning about real estate investing, you should be already done with step 1. You should be starting like a step 2, step 3, and step 4. Step 2 is, if you have mortgage room with an A lender, that's your RBC, CIBC, BMO, etc., you should be able to, and if you have the requirement principle of 300K to 400K, etc., you should be able to start buying duplexes or converting duplexes. Okay. And of course, garden suites, triplex. Your ROI is roughly like 10% and above, and you can do as many as 5 to 10 assets until you exhaust your mortgage room with the lenders, so no bank will lend to you. Then you go to step 3, which you could use our mortgage room. So we would qualify mortgage on your behalf. And then there's, of course, we have to operate it for you. And those ones, ROI is about 7% to like 20%-ish. And you can buy, as many as you want if we have the room, if we have a mortgage room for you. And after that, if you want to buy unlimited, you don't have to worry about income qualification. Then you go to commercial. That's where you get generational wealth. You buy multifamily buildings. Okay. And that's you need at least 500,000 plus, and your RI is about 8% plus. So today, what we're talking about falls into step 2. Okay, step 2 is we're assuming you can qualify for mortgages at a bank, and you have the required down pay, and therefore you can look at duplex and triplex, etc. All right. If there's no more questions, then okay. So today we're gonna walk you through, in terms of like triplex or garden suite, what to wear, how to buy, permit, how to build. What are the real numbers? This is the meat, because we do it. Not like many people out there, like they just know in theory, but we have done it. We're one of the first ones to do in Ontario. And key points when you operate it, because we have done it too. And we'll show you real case studies of what we have done on open mic. All right. Okay. Okay. So what is a garden suite? If on the left you see a single family dwelling, it is what it is, 3-bed plus 3 plus 2, and your rent income probably 2,000 to 3,000 per month, 36,000 a year. In the middle is the legal duplex. It's 3 beds upstairs and 2 beds downstairs. And these are real examples we showed you, and these are real numbers. So legal duplex, what we shared last time, was you can get roughly 2,200 in the upper unit and 1,800 in the downstairs unit, and you're achieving, close to 50,000 a year. Now, what we're talking about today is a third scenario on the right. Right here, you actually already have a legal duplex. You either have one, or you bought one, or you converted one. Okay, and then you build a garden suite in the backyard. Then you have a 3-bed unit in the upper unit, a 3-bed unit in the downstairs unit, and a 2-bed unit in the garden suite. Or you could have 3-bed upstairs, 2-bed downstairs, and 1 or 2-bed in the garden suite. However, you can mix match, right? Our real example, what we have done is we have a legal duplex, 3 plus 3, so 3-bed upstairs and 3-bed downstairs, and we built a garden suite consisting of 2 beds. Okay, so the annual rental income is 2,400 plus 1,850 plus 1,650 per month. That's over 70,000 a year, and we did that in Barrie. In Toronto, you can achieve higher. These are real numbers. Any questions at this point? Okay, I will continue. Okay, do we have a slide about what is a garden suite? Yeah, so let me just do this one first, and then we're talking about location. I think we might want to change this for the future as well. Shirley?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, if you can make a note, that'd be great. Okay, so what is a garden suite? A garden suite is essentially you build a detached unit in your backyard. It's as simple as that. It sounds very simple, but it has to qualify for all of the building code. It has to have all the compliance. You have to have new plumbing, like new infrastructure, everything. All right. So that is a garden suite. I think that's self-explanatory, unless there's a question about what a garden suite is. All right. Okay. Let's go back to where to buy. So I said we have I don't know, like for people who have attended our previous sessions, you probably know we have a model to figure out where to buy certain things, like where to buy duplex, where to buy triplex, or where to build garden suite, or where to buy multifamily. The main criteria for us is population and distance to Toronto, and really the price point to make the ROI to break certain level. So essentially, we're looking for something that's the most affordable in the shortest distance to Toronto. If it's within Toronto, even better. Okay. So, in Garden Suite, so downtown Toronto requires much larger cash upfront, but very defensive. And it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to find a duplex which allows you to build more strict just because of the lay of the land. You don't get a lot of land in Toronto, right? Much easier in other cities. I know a lot of other municipalities are saying, now they will bypass all the there's a new law, you can bypass all the process, you don't have to go through the whole application process, but those are actually not in effect yet, and you don't know the actual rules. So we're going to talk about numbers using real numbers we have experienced ourselves. It's already done, and it's in areas that already has the Garden Suite laws in effect. So we're going to talk about Toronto, and we're going to talk about Barrie. Okay, Barrie requires a smaller cash upfront, but it has more appreciation potential just because it's so cheap to start with. All right. So this is the slide I always show on every single session, because the key thing with real estate investing, at least how we do it, is we start with one and we just keep repeating. We keep building equity in there, pulling money out, refinance them, use that money to buy more and just replicate it. So you can start with one and you can end up with a large portfolio if you just keep repeating this process. So we talk about what is a Garden Suite. Let me briefly touch on what are the key things you need in order to build a Garden Suite. Now, let me just put it this way. In this market, I actually recommend you buying instead of building. I'll tell you why in a second in subsequent slides. But it's good that you have a concept as in case there's such a good deal out there. If you want to build, what are you going to expect, right? So there's the building code, fire code, electrical code at a provincial level. You have to make sure that you meet all of them. It's essentially new construction, right? Okay, next. Then you actually have bylaws of municipality. So for example, Barrie is very clear with its bylaws regarding garden suites. You know exactly what you're getting yourself into it. There's the exact measurement on ceiling heights, egress, all of that stuff. But in other municipalities, like some of them don't allow it right now. Some of them says, oh, the new law is in fact and allows it, but it doesn't have actually the actual like the bylaws. And some of the bylaws in some areas actually conflicts with the provincial codes. So we're gonna do, right? You want to pick an area where like it's mature, like you don't have these problems, and it's super clear, and you can just go and build it. Okay. Now, get into the technical side of it. Zoning is the first thing you need to check, right? And then there's minimum or maximum criteria on square footage. You cannot build too small or you cannot build too big. Sometimes you cannot build certain levels. Sometimes you can build, more than one level. There's parking requirements, also hydro and water lines and roof, etc. Those are all spelled pretty clear in the code, right? And also when you design these, like you have to use the same mature tree growth. I know it's just one liner, but it can give you a lot of headaches. You have to design for the soundproofing, for heating, cooling, plumbing, hydro. This all sounds very basic, but once you get to construct it, like Jesus Christ, like we've been dealing with, many, many problems that you can't think of with these basic things. All right. And then essentially you have to check the size, you have to take a measurement, you have to make sure you comply with all the bylaws and code compliance check. You have to have the right architect to produce permit materials. And I can tell you this, like some architects, they don't actually understand construction, or not as much as you'd think. So when you go through the construction process, you find, holy smoke, like these, it looks so pretty on paper and you just cannot build it. And usually you want to avoid committee of adjustment, which is a COA, the box in the COA. Like you want to avoid committee of adjustment. But if you're fully compliant with the law, you do not have to go through the committee of adjustment, because then that process, your neighbors can complain about your plan, they can stop it, things like that. You don't want to go through that. Unless it's in Toronto, which in some cases is worth it. In Barrie, you don't have to go through it. You just like stick with the law and you'll get a permit pretty quick. All right, then you do the construction. There's so much back and forth during that whole process. And then finally, hopefully you can get inspection passed and you can do occupancy. All right. Okay. Real numbers. It's a lot to go through. These are as realistic as possible because we operate some of them. So like these numbers are pretty close. But depends on your management style, etc. But we've laid out the big bulk items here and assumption here, so you can take it for your own we can take it for your own cross check later on. So let's start with Toronto, right? The scope of work is you buy a legal duplex and you build a garden suite in the backyard. With the market now, if you really try. Like for example, we are trying to buy something in this price range for our clients right now and for ourselves right now. So you can buy roughly duplex between like 1 to 1.5, but 1.5 wouldn't make any sense too. So we're sticking with the 1 million mark, right? For a duplex, right? And in Toronto, you can easily rent for 3-bed for 3,000, 2-bed for 2,200. And if you build a garden suite in the back for 2-bed, you can easily achieve 2,300. So your annual rental is actually 90,000, much higher than 70,000 I mentioned, because this is Toronto. In Barrie, 70,000. In Toronto, easily 90,000. All right, that's somebody's salary a year. Your estimated operating expense, property tax, insurance, utility, etc. You have to pay for utilities in the common areas. So like, you still have to incur some utilities. And annual expense is about 15,500, excluding financing. All right. So let's look at the number on the right hand side. If you have room at an A lender, so that's your CIBC, TD, National, blah, blah, let's assume they can lend you for 65% LTV and above. So your down pay is somewhere between 35% and below, all right? And interest rate is 5.5% fixed 5 years right now. I mean, these numbers, they're probably gonna drop, all right? But we're being conservative and using a higher number right now. And with a 25-year amortization, your mortgage monthly, like your mortgage payment per month is roughly 4,500, and you need to pay for land transfer tax. You need to have some reserve funds, and you need to have down pay. The reason you see here the reserve funds is so high, it's typically a few months of expense, but the reserve fund is so high is actually, Shirley, why don't you tell them why this reserve fund is so high? Because it's actually not a reserve fund. What is it?
Yeah, it consists of a renovation, which is a construction cost of building a garden suite in the backyard,
Right.
plus holding expense.
Okay.
While
Holding expense, holding expense is very negligible in this case. This is actually not a reserve fund. This is actually your construction cost. So maybe we should just label it better in the future. But I just want to point out that you don't need a large reserve fund. You need this much money roughly from construction. Okay. And a plus a down pay. So short fund you need is roughly 720, and monthly cash flow is about 250. After you complete your construction, what you do? You go to the bank and take the money out. You can roughly pull out your construction fund, which is about over 300K, okay? Now, the assumption we made here is that after you build a garden suite, the entire asset has gone up from $1 million to 1.4, which is very realistic. And then with 70% LTV, the bank will give you back over 300K. All right. So really, how much money you're tied in the asset? It's about 400K. 41. Yeah, 410, like 400K, right? And then if you hold it for 5 years, we just use the 5.5 as assumption for growth, just because that's the historical data. You're looking at exiting about 1.9, and your mortgage balance by then would be 870. So your profit is roughly over 500,000, and your ROI is roughly like 25% plus. All right. Okay. I see a question. So is that garden suite unit with a basement or slab? It depends on the municipality laws. So for example, in certain areas, they do not allow basement. In certain areas, they allow more than 2 levels. So it depends. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at again, it's Toronto. Same scenario, but you cannot qualify for an A bank. You qualify for a B lender, which is your home trust, equitable bank, etc. Okay. Same LTV, but their rate is roughly higher. So it's at 6.5%. And their amortization is also a bit higher at 30 years. So we run the numbers for you with this roughly the same construction cost and everything. See, your short term is roughly, again, you need about over 700K. Your monthly cash flow is down at $100 or so. Your equity takeout is roughly the same, over 300K, and your capital tied into this asset is roughly the same, about 400K. Okay, and because the rate is higher over 5 years, if you hold it with the same assumption, your mortgage balance by the end of the 5 years would be over 900. Like you see, it's about 50,000 more than the mortgage balance you would have if you qualify for a bank. And so remember the first option, your profit is about like 500,000, and here your profit is about 465. So not too much of a difference. There is a difference. So the ROI is down a few points. It's like 22, 23 points. Any question at this point? Okay, let's move on. So that's Toronto. Okay, now this is what I'm talking about. Nowadays, just because I went through the construction process, I would not recommend a newbie to do it. It's always more budget and more time and more cost than you think. For somebody new who has a tight budget, you really probably cannot not afford going through the process. So what I actually recommend is you go buy either a legal duplex with an existing garden suite in the backyard or like a triplex, right? Those numbers would be different a little bit, but like in general, it looks like this. So purchase price roughly, let's compare apples to apples. So purchase price 1.4. You can have a rent roll of, again, 3 bed for 3,000, 2 bed for 2,200, and 2 bed for 2,300. Your annual income again is 90,000, and your operating expense roughly 1,500. All right. Now with this, your bank can probably lend you higher at 70% LTV, and we use the same rate. Right? Okay. So the magic is because you do not have to do construction. Literally, the bank will lend you that part of the money up front because it's already built. So the short-term fund needed, meaning how much money it is to tie up in this asset, it's about 500,000. So remember the last option we had, you had in front about 700K, then you take some money out. In this option, you don't take money out. You just put in roughly $500,000, you get this thing done, and you don't have to go through construction. In this market, just because we went through construction, like the cost just went skyrocketing, I would not recommend any newbies out there to do it. Like you better buy with existing garden suite or triplex, right? Now, you see the value exit roughly at 1.8%, and the mortgage balance, we have that laid out, and your profit is gonna be around 350,000. And a B lender, if you go with B lender, your rate will be higher and your profit will be roughly around 300,000. So you see, like, it's lower than the first option where you already build, and the RI is lower. If you went with a lender, it's 13 to 14%. If it's a B lender, it's 11 to 12%. It's still good, and it's safer, and it's much less work. So if you're a big risk taker and if you don't mind going through like all the surprises and all the shit show in construction, sorry, excuse my French, and like you want to get the max ROI, go to the first option, which is you build, right? Which is this one. But if you're more conservative, you're just starting out, want to give it a try, see how it how does it feel, right? You go for this option, which is, you buy an existing one. Okay, so that's Toronto. Any questions at this point? Okay.
I saw someone raise the hand. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Hi, Dave.
Hello.
Hi, Dave. I just tried to unmute you.
Hello?
Hello? Yeah, we can hear you now.
So what I don't get is like I understand why you're building like while you're investing in duplex and triplex in like Hamilton, Durham, and everything like that. But the market's slightly changed right now in Toronto.
That's right.
In High Park, for instance, you can get like a 6-bedroom house that's
Mhm.
already been done for about like 1.6 to 2
Right.
million,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
so you're making probably about like 150K.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically what's happened is like if they're you know private companies, they're getting out because they don't want it, they don't want the property anymore. Or another thing, and they've already been done. They've already been like made into apartments, units. So you don't have to have that construction stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, and we're only talking about 200,000 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And there are numerous properties in Parkdale, numerous Parkdale, and yeah, it's just
Yeah.
bigger reward, not much more in terms of the purchase price.
Mm-hmm.
Like Toronto is changing.
Yeah. 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 So you want to hear me out on this?
Sure.
Okay. So we do a lot of multifamily. Duplex and triplex are for beginners. We do a lot of multifamily. The ones that you are talking about,
They're condos. I mean, not condos. I mean, they're buildings.
yeah, they're multifamily buildings. Now,
Yeah.
do you know they're purpose built or no?
Are they? What do you mean purpose built? Yeah, they've already been segmented into the various units.
Okay. So if they're being segmented into various units, those are not purpose built. Those are what we call retrofit. So people like us, we don't like to touch retrofit buildings because we did that before and the plumbing and everything was a nightmare, which is a retrofit, and the risk profile is much higher with those buildings. So we Okay, so there's a lot of people and different groups buy multifamily buildings in Ontario.
Yeah.
And we typically like to stick with purpose built. So that's number one. Because we did segmenting into those, we did conversion before and just, you know.
We don't have to do conversion with these. Like they're already, you know, done.
Right. So
You're
those,
gonna have, it's Parkdale's an old neighborhood, so you are gonna have things like plumbing issues, electrical issues, and things like that. But that's just, and you're gonna have the same problems with the places you're doing. So it doesn't change because these are
so-
the older houses too in Barrie and in Hamilton.
right. So how do I, so in the future, like later this year, we're gonna do multifamily series as well. So like
Yeah.
we can dive into all the details, but essentially, multifamily buildings, there are two types. One is purpose built and one is not purpose built. We don't touch, and a lot of people don't touch retrofit, which is not purpose built. So somebody took existing, single family house or whatever, and they section off into apartment buildings, which it's it in its whole category, it's its own category that we don't touch. It's because of there's other risk associated with it. Number two is that those buildings run on cap rates. They're not run on RI so much. They're more run on cap rates. So we actually watch Toronto pretty closely too, because we buy in Toronto too. Part of our portfolio is Toronto, and a lot of our clients are looking in Toronto right now as well, just because the market has changed, as you said. However, what we are finding out is, yes, the price may not look that difference, but once you run all the expense, it's much more heavier in the end, and the cap rate is like right now on the market, what we see is the cap rate is still between like say 3 to 5 ish. That's still the cap rate. So like for example, the reason why they use cap rate to evaluate multifamily is because how do you compare a 6-unit building with a 20-unit building with a 100-unit building, right? It's really cap rate that people are looking at, which I'm sure like many people here are confused as to what is cap rate, which will explain our future series on multifamily. So when you compare those, the change we see is the cap rate in Toronto has been compressing over the years, but it's not being relaxed that much. But there are deals that we see. However, it doesn't fit the criteria we're looking at. For example, it's not purpose built; it's retrofit. For example, it looks like the price isn't that high, but when you factor in all the maintenance and repairs, etc., because in theory, even if you go to CMHC, the maintenance repair they budget is about 100 per door. However, in practice, because we own multifamily buildings, in practice, on some of these buildings, you could run up to 500 per door or even 800 per door. So after you factor all that in, you're going to be horrified at the cap rate and at the ROI. So what I'm trying to get at is there are pros and cons for choosing either duplex or triplex or multifamily. If you're looking at multifamily, the criteria will be different. And the numbers are not like the model that we have, and the numbers we look at multifamily is not like the sheet you're looking at now. It's a totally it's a totally different model, which we will actually get into details when we actually talk about share information about multifamily. Yeah. So honestly, I'm not sure if I answered any.
But you're not having to like build a new garden suite. You're not having the construction, but you are going to have maintenance costs as well. But that's part of the whole thing, right? So they've done all the work for you. At some point, you're going to have to get it invest money in order to upgrade the units to a better standard.
That's right.
But you're already making revenue, right? So you're making a substantial amount of revenue in the meantime. Then you can do that in like 5 years, say.
The problem with that is, that when you're talking about the lending really makes or breaks a multifamily deal. So they're not going to lend at 60%. They're not going to lend at 70%. They're going to lend, based on our experience, actually between like 35 to like 55%. So unfortunately, that's why, like, if you're looking at the same price, the bank will lend you a lot more money. You're gonna put a lot smaller down pay in like duplex, triplex, or not even triplex, like in duplex or a garden suite, whatever, than if it's like a multifamily. But it's a totally different model. It's already making revenues. It's its own category, which we're gonna have a very good discussion when the topic comes up, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just when I was looking at this, it's like, yeah, I know they're different, but it's like, I mean, from the price points, it's different in terms of like how much revenue you're going to get,
Mhm.
and you're talking maybe. I mean, I was talking with a friend of mine, and
Hmm.
we're looking at buying like a 1.3 triplex. I'd live in one unit, she'd live in
Yeah,
the other unit, and then
yeah,
we'd rent out the third unit, right?
yeah, yeah. So
1.3.
yeah, so this is where I was saying, like, in this market, I don't recommend you to build. I recommend you buy. Like,
Yeah,
buy something that's already built with a garden suite or buy a triplex. That's
yeah,
why we made the different scenarios here, and that's why I said, like,
yeah,
I will show you the numbers of
yeah,
construction, which you will make more,
yeah,
right? Like, you will make more. But for somebody new starting out, like, honestly, I recommend you to buy, not to build.
yeah.
This,
Me too.
yeah.
Because I agree. Like, I mean, in terms of you're just doing fixing, you're just like it's not cosmetic. Some of the stuff will be like wiring and stuff like that, but it's nothing like trying to come up with a new design to
Mm,
to create a
mhm.
and make sure that you have pull all the permits
Yeah.
and everything like that in terms of making a garden suite
Yeah.
or a basement apartment.
Right, but just hear me out. If you were ever to do that, please make sure whoever you work with, like, you make sure you still check the permit, you still check the
Oh,
zoning.
I mean, this is just
I'm
yeah, it's just here. Like, I mean, it's just an idea, right? So
in
okay,
Toronto, I can
I
tell you
would.
this, we monitor it, and 80% of them are not legal. It's only the 10 to 20% that are legal. So just
Yeah, I know. And but you're also setting it, you're creating something new as well, right? So you're making a safe apartment, right? So
yeah, because if you want to hold it and want to sleep at night, like, don't
yeah,
have
yeah.
litigation,
Because I
then
don't want to get sued, right?
exactly.
So
And if anything happens, and if the zoning doesn't work out, or if the permit doesn't work out, like,
yeah.
you'll be sued your pants off. Like, what if a
I
fire,
know, I know, I know, I
right?
know.
That's why. Yeah.
And that's one of the that's one of the reasons why, I mean, like, I don't know, in terms of going through all this process,
Yeah.
I mean, like investing in a RIT, like, and still making a return and not
Yeah.
having to go through the headaches
Yeah.
of like tenants and construction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a lot. I mean, yeah, the money's there, but it's just
Yeah.
it's a job. It's a
Yeah.
second job.
Yes, it is. It is. We made
Yeah.
it our full-time job. It's a job. All right.
All right.
Yeah, that's a good discussion. So let's hopefully we discuss more on the multifamily session.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's look at Barry. Barry numbers will be slightly smaller. So but the same logic. So right now, you can actually purchase a legal duplex for about 800K. And your construction roughly about 300K. And your rental income, these are real, like 2200, 1700, 1700, and we achieved higher. So we achieved actually 70,000. We just used a lower number for more conservative reasons. And we have your property tax, insurance, utility, whatever. You have your annual expense. So with the same assumption, your cash, the short-term cash you need upfront is about 650, and your cash flow would be about 200 for a lender, and about $70 for B lender, and you're able to take out roughly about 200K once construction is complete and you have your rent, your garden suite rented out, and your after repair value for the entire asset after you built the garden suite is now roughly about 1.15 million. Okay. So your long-term fund needed is about 450, which is smaller than what you would need in Toronto. And using the same assumption, you're exiting in about 5 years, about 1.5 mil. So your mortgage balance at that time is around 600K to 650, and your profit is about 360 or 330, so above 300. And your ROI with an A lender is roughly like 16% plus, and your B lender is about 15% plus. All right. So overall, it's still pretty high return in theory, and your long-term fund tied in there is less than $500,000, which is less than Toronto. And this is where I come in. Like, we build a garden suite, like it's fun, but we don't recommend doing that right now. The construction cost is just really crazy. So what we recommend actually is for you to buy something with an existing garden suite already built, or a triplex, right? So in Barrie, it's actually like we actually own a few assets like this. We already have garden suite built in the rear yard, in the backyard. Okay, then you're looking at about 1.15 million purchase price. Your rental income upfront is about 67,000, and your annual expense about 50,000. So with all the same assumption, going to A lender or B lender, with the rate that's really high, like 5.5% or 6.5%, you're looking at tying about $500,000 in these assets, and your cash flow would be between like $70 to like $200 ish, and you would exit around 1.5 million, and your profit would be around 300K or $250,000, and your ROI is about 11% above or 10% above. This is, again, like your money tied in here is less than Toronto, and your ROI is a few points lower, but it's safer. It's already built. You already have the income. You just have to operate it. Okay. All right. So what are the key points of operating garden suite? Shirley, why don't you talk about it? Because you live and breathe this every day. It's a love and a hate relationship.
Sure, of course, why not? Okay, so the key points of operation while holding a garden suite I found quite important are first of all the parking arrangement. So imagine you're going to have 3 families, probably about at least 6 to 9 persons are going to live there. They would have 1 to 2 cars for each family. Then how you can let them move the cars like every day, right? So before you sign the lease, you would be very careful and make sure the size of your driveway is enough for them to park, like won't interrupt each other like quite often. And another thing is that I found some of the owners, they even expand the driveway a bit, because a lot of people, especially in Barrie, they prefer to rent a place come with 1 to 2 parking space. Okay, so that's one thing. Second one is that the smoke fire detector checking, as you have to do like at least 2 to 3 times a year, because you're gonna have 3 families living on the same lot. It's very important to be compliant. And another thing is that managing vacancy period carefully with qualified tenants. I know all the landlords, they are very carefully and trying to mitigate the risk while holding a triplex with high vacancy rate. So that's one thing. Another thing is that arrange a schedule of construction, like Cindy said. Well, we won't recommend that at this moment we do the construction work yourself. However, if you're going to build a garden suite yourself, then make sure that you watch out the schedule of construction work very carefully. It's because sometimes it comes in a sequence, and you have to communicate with the city quite frequently to make sure that all the work has been done in order. For example, like the water lines, water in and water out, right? So you have to do the trench while you have two families living in a duplex, you need to make sure all the communication have been taken care of very specifically. Otherwise, your tenants are going to be super annoyed and they will complain to you all the time, which you definitely don't want to do. And another thing is that learn the scope of construction work and design yourself to find the most cost-effective plan before excavation. Yes. So before you actually do any work, make sure that you fully understand the design of the garden suite and discuss the scope of work with your contractor very carefully to make sure that you understand the risk of each step and what kind of material. And also, for example, like I just want to give an example in Barry we're doing. First of all, when we designed everything, we were trying to build the roof with truss in a metal way. However, when we recalculate all the costs and we talk with the contractor, we found it's really and also material supplier, we found is super hard to find the type of truss we were trying to order. Then we have to do the design again with handcrafted roof ourselves. So kind of caused a big delay of the construction work, and you're paying for everything, and the longer the construction take, which actually is costing you more money, right? So that's another one. The next one is assign the responsibility of lawn maintenance, snow removal, and parking space with the tenants property when the lease were signed. Let me explain this a bit, because imagine this way. When you rent the garden suite out, the full backyard, a lot of tenants would ask you, well, who is going to use the backyard, right? So typically it's going to be exclusively used by the person who is going to occupy the garden suites. So a lot of tenants who are living in the primary house, which is a duplex dwelling, they would not, they typically won't be willing to take the responsibility of doing any lawn maintenance, because they're not going to use that space, right? So you have to make sure you have the clause in your lease that the gardens with new tenants, they need to take care of this, the backyard. Another thing is that all the water line needs to be set up properly in order to avoid any complaints, like I explained just when I talk about the schedule of the construction work, right? Another thing is that the hydro line are required to be overhead or underground. It's totally different thing, because the price would be totally different. So before you start let the contractor do the work, you need to call the hydro supplier yourself, and also double confirm with city what's the method they would recommend you to do based on the lot of your property, because they will give you instructions, and then it will become different when you start the work, especially the price and the time. Another thing is that check the design of the new garden suite to maximize the rent. Okay, so let me expand a bit about this. It depends when you make a decision how many rooms you will give to the new garden suite. You better do some researches to find out the demographic in the neighborhood, and do some research yourself, so you would know typically how many people would be renting the place in the neighborhood, like a new couple or a big family. They want to share 3 to 4 rooms. What we found in Barrie is that 2 to 3 baths are most popular there. So if your designer is telling you can do 1 bedroom plus a den, I would think you better do the research first and find out if you do need a 2 baths to maximize your rent, in order to do a better cash flow in the future. Okay, that's everything I want to share. Cindy, your turn.
All right. I just thought you probably want to express that because you live to breathe it every day.
Well,
Every sentence I know, every line you said was like, I know if you just hear it, it's like whatever. But in general, every single word cost us money. Every single
exactly.
sentence costed us money. So
So true.
yeah, if somebody can avoid these, you just saved yourself a bunch of money. All right.
Mhm.
Okay. Next. Okay, real case studies. Let's see some photos. So this is what we built in Barrie, purchased in 2021 for roughly 800K. Original rent is 25,000. After we finished everything, we increased the rent to over 70,000. Garner Street cost is about 300 to 350 per square foot, which is really high, like really high. So honestly,
It
the
is, but actually on the market right now, like we
yeah,
just we talked
it's
about,
crazy.
actually it's higher than this price
Yeah,
now.
it's crazy. Like everyone is so crazy. Like the market is so crazy in terms of cost after pandemic. Anyways, so current market, it was appraised in 2023, roughly around 1.15 to 1.2, and we're probably going to exit at 1.4 in the future sometimes. All right. And the first one is the garden suite that we built. Yes, and the first, second, third one is what's inside, like how the inside looks like while it was in renovation. And the three pictures in the lower in the second line were the main house. Yeah.
I believe this one I actually shared the link in all the email blasts. So when I sent that out in the past 3 weeks. So this is a typical garden suite that we have built so far. Yeah.
Okay. Next one. This one again, we did it in 2021. For about 800K. We bought it was vacant possession, and we're probably gonna project it to increase to 63,000 once we finish it and rent it out. And again, roughly worth about 1.15 to 1.2, and we're probably gonna exit after it reaches 1.4 when the whole interest rate debacle is over. Let's hope. All right, and these the photos show how it looks like on the inside, and the last two are work in progress in terms of construction.
I want to add one point. Like this one is a bit interesting, as because when I purchased it, it's actually sit in a corner lot. So when we make a decision on the design, we actually choose to let this garden suite face to another street instead of same of the primary house. So actually, we don't have to cost more on the driveway, because the garden suite tenants, they will have their own drive space.
That's right, corner lot, very important. But it's hard to come by.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, that's everything that we want to share today. I hope you find some value in our real numbers, in our real cases. Sure, you want to go to the last slide? I hope you find some value in what we shared today. These are real numbers, like real cases. And I hope that at least you learned something new today. All right. As usual, if there's any questions, send us your email, or drop us an email, or book a call with us, or something like that. We also have YouTube channels, things like that. Okay, open mic. Any questions? It's very quiet today, but I like the earlier discussion.
Yeah.
Wow, we did such a good job that nobody had questions. Okay, I really hope at least that you guys learned something new today. Wow. Okay. All right. If there's no questions, or if there's no need to open mic, I think that's it for today.
Great.
Yeah. So stay tuned for our future series. We're gonna get into multifamily pretty soon. We're also thinking about getting a summer mixer, just so that we can meet everyone face to face, mingle, talk about the weather, and money. That'd be fun. So yeah, we'll ask for ideas later on. But yeah. Okay, great. Thank you everyone for coming and spending your evening with us, I guess. And happy investing. Okay. All
All
right.
right.
See you
Thank
guys
you,
next time.
Cindy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone. Have a good
Okay.
night. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.